Matty Ice, chump. Green Bay's atrocious defense. That's another vote for the Packer defense, making a strong run. Champ Tom Brady, obvious chump. Everyone who was saying Aaron Rodgers was as good or better. I'm starting to wonder. From Brian, maybe Ripkowski's fumble reminded me of Zach Zenner's fumble against the Giants. That was a huge game changer. Next text. Once the Lions get the run game established, they'll be just fine. Quinn needs to focus on building up the defense in this draft. From Brian, champ Kyle Van Noy. Man, did he get lucky. Chump Ohio State just because. Vote for Ohio State. And Kyle Van Noy, also with multiple votes this week for Champ and Chump. Get your votes in, 248-539-9797. Ticket text 97136. All right, we promised we'd get to it and got sidetracked. Let me follow through on it now, and that is Red Wing and Piston trade rumors. Let's start with the Pistons. I mean, Stan Van Gundy basically acknowledged that there's a lot of conversations that go on, and this one just happened to be reported, and that is whether or not the Pistons were going to trade Reggie Jackson to Minnesota for Ricky Rubio and stuff. Yeah, I'm starting to worry that the Pistons have a ceiling that could be achieved, that is close to being achieved. That they're actually okay. They're better than the record indicates, but how much better? Probably not a ton better, and probably not likely to take out Cleveland or Toronto anytime soon. So do you make a trade to change the course of the organization, to go in a different route, to go with a point guard that isn't quite as offensive-minded? By that I mean looking for his own shot in a player like a Ricky Rubio. Because let's face it, when Ish Smith was the point guard, I mean, there were complaints when Reggie came back, or an undercurrent of concern when Reggie came back, because Ish Smith is a pass-first point guard. And so the other four guys on the court generally, I mean, you know what it's like when you're playing with a guy who's more likely to shoot than pass, and when the guy who's got the ball in his hands all the time, you kind of like that. But at the end of the day, Ricky Rubio isn't the player that Reggie Jackson is. You know, the old saying, and if you in a trade, the team that gets the best player wins the trade.
Well, Rubio might be a guy who passes the ball better than Reggie, but he doesn't play defense like Reggie. And not that Reggie's great defensively, but he's not as good defensively, and he doesn't score. You have to be a threat to score. I mean, I watch enough Michigan State basketball, and it's sad when you see Tum Tum Nairn out there running a half-court offense. When he's running fast break, he's great, but running half-court offense, you know he's not a threat to score. So it's basically 5-on-4 basketball. I'm not saying it's the same thing in the NBA there, but I would love to see the team get back to playing defense, period. Playing defense is going to help you out. Playing defense, it's all about effort. You know, defense isn't supposed to take a night off. You know, sometimes your shot's just not falling. It happens. But defense should never take a back seat because you got an off night. They have to figure it out if they want to make any kind of a run. I think this team has a pretty good core of players. But is this the same type of thing we talk about with the Lions? They just don't have the depth?
Well,
or is it specifically about one key position where you've got a guy who's got some gifts offensively in Reggie Jackson, but the holes in the rest of his game are so big that you have to think about moving him or others? Some people are tired of Andre Drummond.
Well, they have a core of talent, but maybe in the wrong things. If we were talking earlier about the best teams in the league, also happen to be the best teams in the league in three-point shooting. Golden State, Toronto, right. Cleveland.
League has kind of shifted to being a shooter's league.
And, you know, they put together a talented team, but not a talented team that's doing what needs to be done to win in the NBA in 2017. And, you know, that's the direction the league goes. You can build it. You don't always have to follow what the champions are doing. I mean, heck, we're talking about that with the Lions as well. But you just have to wonder, you know, are they just not going to be able to compete with the best until they can shoot it from the perimeter better and play better defense, defend from the perimeter? In fact, let me look up what their defense, we were talking earlier, but how do they defend the perimeter relative to everybody else? I'm going to guess not very good.
Well, the unfortunate thing for the Pistons in the NBA is that, you think in other sports, free agency money talks. Baseball, you can outpay anybody else and get a player to come free agent-wise. In the NFL, it's kind of about, you can do the same thing with guaranteed money. And people know in the NFL, it's also different because just because you're bad one year doesn't mean you're going to be bad the next year. Things can turn around awful quick in the NFL. They did for the Cowboys this year when they won 4 games last year, and this year they won 14. Yep. That's a big turnaround year to year. You can see that change there. In the NHL, it's similar because any team's got a chance you get into the playoffs. In the NBA, it's different. You have the haves and the have-nots. So when you become a free agent, you got your pick of the litter where you really want to go. And even it seems like every year, even the teams that are really good seem to have money enough to spend on this free agent and bring him in. I mean, who would have thought that Kevin Durant was going to be able to sign with Golden State?
Right.
How does that happen?
248-539-9797. The other rumor that came out over the weekend was that the Blackhawks, and this was a reported trade from a writer in Chicago, the Blackhawks are calling asking about Tatar and Nyquist, or Nyquist, I guess. And even the writer goes on and says, take it with a grain of salt. Teams make countless calls this time of year, may not lead to anything. But what the Red Wings would likely be looking back is a young defenseman. And Trevor Van Riemsdyk, who is with a young defenseman who's up, I think he's 25 years old and played the better part of 2 seasons with the Blackhawks, who's a plus guy, would be one that they would look at. Another might be Ville Polka, who is their top-rated prospect that's a defenseman. I don't know, man. I don't know how much the Blackhawks value those guys and whether or not they have the depth in the organization would want to give either of those guys up. Maybe it's pipe dream stuff. I'm not a Blackhawk. I'm not following the Blackhawks organization. But I would tell you, both Tatar and Nyquist feel like they've both come up short in terms of what they could provide or what was expected to provide, or hoping that they would be doing more.
Well, I think you and I both have the same problem. We both have a hard time looking at those two players and saying that they've already reached their ceiling. There's nowhere up for them compared to what they were a few years ago. I don't want to accept that, and yet it might be time to accept that they're not ever going to be that player that's on the rise like they were when they were on pace to score 30 goals. But we haven't seen that in a long time from either one of these guys, and that we're seeing a little bit of waking up from both of them, but not on that scale where they're getting 6 points in 8 games or 15 points in 20. We're not seeing that out of them. And it's frustrating because the Red Wings need to have players like that. We talk all the time in baseball how important it is for you to develop your own players so you have lower-priced players that are young but they're actually good, like a Castellanos. How important a player like that is so you can spend money elsewhere. Well, the same thing goes for hockey. You need to have the young players producing so they can stay at that low salary level, and you can go out and get other players to make your team better.
Well, you just don't want to pull the plug on a guy that still has upside. But, I mean, remember Nyquist went through a stretch where he had like 28 goals in 50-something games.
Yeah.
And how that guy, it feels like he hasn't scored 28 goals since that season.
You may not have, which was a little funny, but I think sad on the other end too, if it's true. But I also think that part of that is a product of who you're playing with. And the Red Wings don't have the superstar player. If you're Chicago, would you be interested in these guys? I would be if I was Chicago, because I could pair one of them up with Patrick Kane or pair him with Jonathan Taves, and those are 2 superstar players. They're going to make their wingers better.
One would think.
But we don't have a Taves or a Kane here in Detroit.
248-539-9797. If you want to get in on any of that trade talk, we'll get to more of your feedback coming up today at 1:20. Guys, you work hard during the day to bring home a paycheck. You take care of your family, and I think you deserve to take a trip and blow off some steam. So get some friends, get your wife or girlfriend, and book a trip to the D in Las Vegas. The D is in downtown Las Vegas, where the odds are always better and the parties are always bigger. There's a ton of places to hit along Fremont Street. You can play some golf, have some great meals, and you'll love the dancing dealers at the D. It's not going to cost you as much money either, so you got more money to play with while you're out there in Vegas. You can get a room at the D for under $50 during the week. And if you're going to Vegas on business, grab a cab, escape the Strip, and head up to the D. The D's mission is to give you a totally different Las Vegas experience. That includes the second floor vintage casino with the vibe The original Las Vegas. You deserve it, guys. Go to thed.com and book your stay. When you're there, there's a good chance you're going to run into the owner, Derek Stevens, down at the end of the Long Bar. It's the D in Las Vegas, your home for Detroit sports in Vegas.